In this video, I'm going to dive deep into some of the most controversial issues that fans, including myself, have with this game. I won't just point out small flaws but also highlight some major issues with the game. That being said, The Witcher 3 is still the best game of all time in my opinion. If you left me on a deserted island and told me I could only play one game for the rest of my life, The Witcher 3 would be my choice. That's how much I love it, but even with my love for the game, I can recognize it has some issues. I asked people on the Witcher forums what is it they don't like about the game, and to make this video I had to go through over 500 comments, some of which were harsh and also added my own issues with the game. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with my biggest issue with the game, and I'm sure most of you will agree, the underwhelmingly weak final boss. Eridan was disappointing. He had a couple of attacks, but they were so easy to dodge. You could get close to him and keep hitting him with heavy attacks, and that was it. He was so easy that I didn't even die once. His general Imleris was much better fight. He had good defense and teleporting attacks which made the fight more engaging, but even him was not that hard. And don't get me started on Kranthir, his fight was a joke. This brings us to the bigger problem, the overall easy combat and bad scaling system. There is a difference between the story and gameplay. The Wild Hunt was hyped as back as Witcher 1. And yes, I know they were in the books, but in this video I want to focus on the games. They abducted Yennefer, they chased Ciri through time and space, but when you finally face them, they don't seem that strong or scary. The whole game built up on them and then it failed to deliver. It delivers when you look at them in the storyline, but not in the gameplay. Or Ladies of the Woods, for example, they are these extremely dangerous ancient witches, but when you fight them, they don't have much special tricks up their sleeves. In short, the gameplay doesn't deliver the intensity of the story. And it becomes disappointing sometimes, like the fight with Yat-Karidan. It's a pretty long quest and the climax is that he is a witcher, but once you get into fight with him, he is no different than a common bandit and easily gets killed. I remember how excited I was that I'm going to fight a witcher, but in the end I was left disappointed. It points out to the one of Witcher 3's weaknesses, and that is lack of good moveset, both for Geralt and his enemies. Yat-Karidan had no special attacks. The only thing he had going on was the Quen Shield, and he had the same moveset of a bandit or a soldier, and as I said, the game lacks moveset in general. Even Geralt has these two fast and heavy attacks. I wish he had more fighting styles which you could unlock in a skill tree to make the combat more interesting. In major boss fights, I wanna die a couple of times. I wanna think about when to dodge, when to attack, which sign or bomb to use, which potion to have readied. I want to know my mistakes could be fatal. Of course nothing Souls-like. As much as I love the Souls games, that combat wouldn't work for a story-driven game like Witcher. That said, the boss fights should be more challenging to an extent. They should test your skills in the game. Cdpr did a much better job in DLCs. Both Hearts of Stone and Blood of Wine had better boss fights with variety of attacks. It would be nitpicking, but a tad bit harder bosses than Dettlaff will satisfy me. Now let's take a look at the combat in general. I have some issues with it. One of them is autolock. I'm sure you all have experienced this when Geralt goes in combat mode and you want to jump over a fence, but he keeps rolling. It gets annoying sometimes. Also, the sword feels light, like when you're swinging it, it doesn't feel like Geralt is holding a heavy sword. It actually felt heavier in The Witcher 2. These are little flaws you get used to, but I just wanted to point them out. Now, about overall difficulty of the game. I have played the game over 10 times and except for my first playthrough, I played the rest on Death March, which is the hardest difficulty. But except for the 10 first hours or so, the rest of the game was so easy. That took from the experience. There was a couple of good fights here and there, but overall it was not challenging at all. I know we have to keep in mind that Geralt is the best monster killer out there, and there is no human being who can best him in combat. This to an extent explains why Geralt is OP. Witcher is not like some other games where you start as a nobody. Here you start as the best monster killer. However, that does not explain killing 20 guys that easily, or killing some huge and strong monster with couple of hits. Even in the books, Geralt had to prepare before the fight, use the right potions and equipment, and even after that, monsters were challenging and one mistake could be the end. But in the games, it's so easy that I don't feel the need to use specific potions or oils, which brings us to the next problem, bad scaling. Witcher 3 has good combat mechanics. Potions, oils, concoctions, and signs each for a specific use and monster, which is great. The game gives you these mechanics, but unfortunately it doesn't give you the situation where you feel the need to use one, except for some fights. It would have been great if I actually had to prepare before the fight, like when fighting a relic, apply its oil on my silver sword, but I didn't care much about that because I could just kill the monster with couple of hits, which shouldn't be like that. In the beginning, because the scaling was good, I had to use them in couple of situations, but as game progressed, they become obsolete for the most part because of bad scaling. I'm not saying a fight should be impossible without them, but it should be more difficult in a way that you feel the need to use the oil or potion. That, in my opinion, would make the combat more engaging and would give meaning to the assets you have at hand. Another big scaling issue is swords and armor. But before that, if you like this video so far, please leave a like and subscribe. My next goal is hitting 300 subs and your support would be appreciated. Also, I know so far it seems like I have a beef with Witcher, but to the contrary, I have spent a big chunk of my life playing the game and a bigger one making videos of it, rooting my love and passion for the game, and that's why these issues bug me so much. With that said, let's continue. So, swords. What's wrong with them, you might ask? Well, let's say you have your Witcher sword or a rare relic one with a story behind it, and then 5 levels later you stumble upon a rusty sword in a cave or a normal sword in a loot box, and it has higher stats than your legendary sword. It's not game breaking or anything, but logically it shouldn't be like that. It's bad scaling. The way to solve it is that every sword should have a base stats and final upgrade stats, and no matter when you find it, it should be at its basic stats. That way you don't stumble upon a rusty sword that is better than Iris, for example. Same goes for the armor, especially the infamous so-called best armor Joanna, the blacksmith in Krau's Perch, gives you. So you go through all these troubles to finally get the legendary armor she has promised you. And I remember the first time I was super excited for it, thinking how cool looking and strong it would be, and when I finally got my armor, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was just Witch Hunter's armor in a different color, and by that time I already had a better one. It was such a huge letdown. Same goes for the so-called best sword Hatari makes you. That guy should have stick to dumplings. I know they kinda fix it in the remastered version, but it still is far from what was promised. I don't know what Cdpr were thinking, promising legendary armor and sword and managing to disappoint players both times. Again, these are nothing game breaking, but for me personally, a huge letdown. So these were my main beef with the game. There are other smaller ones and also the ones that users on Reddit pointed out, which I will get into in a second. For combat related stuff, besides what I said, people pointed out that horse riding and mounted combat is not smooth. I personally had no issues with horse riding, it worked okay, but mounted combat was terrible. That goes for the combat in general, which is not Witcher 3's strong suit. A user on Reddit said, Human enemy bosses are just normal NPCs with more HP and a health bar, which for the most part I agree with, and that again shows the problem with combat and also, as I said before, the difference between story and gameplay. Another example is that girl in Skellige who no man had defeated. So story-wise, she is strong. First, because she has defeated all her opponents. Second, she lives in Skellige, the land of warriors where people crave battle, and she still has bested all her Skelligan opponents. This makes her super strong. Yet when you fight her, again, she has no special tactics, fights like a common bandit, and is easily defeated. This user also said, for whatever reason, boars one-shot me. Eridan and Detlaf are easier than 5 boars or 10 wolves, which is funnily kinda true. These boars were really tough opponents, better than many other enemies in the game. The other thing that broke immersion for me was lack of variation in NPC faces. You see the same merchant just in different clothes over and over. You are standing somewhere and there are 2 NPCs with the same face and even same clothes sometimes. Someone is a random NPC in Novigrad but a quest giver in another village. This happens a lot and I totally agree with this. It's a shame because otherwise it would have made the game much more immersive. Another user pointed out, the entire Witcher 3's economy isn't sensible. Witcher 1 at least had several different currencies, each having a different value to one another. Witcher 3 dumbs down and simplifies everything to the point that in-game economy simply doesn't make any sense. It's very immersion breaking at times, because most things are priced with the metacontextual understanding that you're a treasure looting psychopath. By the time I get to the Blood and Wine, I'm sitting on 60,000 crowns and still can't afford all my Witcher upgrades. It's ridiculous. I can definitely see where he's coming from, but for me personally, it wasn't a big deal. But it would have been a nice to have. The game could assign different currencies to different countries and, for example, have banks where you could exchange your money to the local currency. It really would have added more depth to the game. Another little detail is Redanian guards shouting, "Long live Radovid," even after you kill him. Or to make matters worse, after you finish the game and Dijkstra or Nilfgaard ruled the North, they still say, "Long live Radovid." I think they are super loyal soldiers. Another gameplay related issue with the game is a skill tree in The Witcher 3. It was very basic and didn't add much to the game. I mean, the rolling fast attack and Sign's final forms were great, but besides that, it didn't add that much variety to the gameplay. So the next one I saw on Reddit, and let me tell you, not only I vehemently disagree with it, but also I support the opposite of that. Someone had the audacity to say, game is too long. Can you believe that? For what is worse, I would have liked the game to be 2 times or 3 times longer. No matter what, I want more Witcher. I want to get lost in an amazing world that is Witcher 3. But then I'm a crazy Witcher fan, and I could see how it seems long for someone who enjoys Witcher 3, but isn't necessarily a Witcher crazy fan. Now, let's get into this story. Unlike combat, story and characters are where Witcher 3 shines. The main story is amazing, the side stories are fantastic, the characters are unbelievably well written, they have their own lives and motivations, and are not just there to serve you or give you quests. This makes finding problems within the story really hard. Except for one infamous quest, other problems are either minor ones or a difference in taste. Let's start with the one everybody knows about: the reasons of a state quest. A user on Reddit said, "The entire plot of A Matter of Politics and everything afterwards is bad. I'm sick of people pretending that it isn't. The entire Radovid going insane storyline is rubbish. It doesn't align with any of the previous games, doesn't align with the books. It's just not sensible except to force the players into thinking Nilfgaard is the right choice. We just had Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and it seemed like Geralt is trying to catch up to Leto in the Destroy the Norse speedrun. Dijkstra suddenly loses 150 IQ points. Radovid is suddenly a drooling moron that is spiking professionally trained herbalists because they might be witches in the middle of war. He is harsh, but he has a point. Almost every Witcher YouTuber has already talked about it, so I'm not gonna repeat it all over again. Just that this quest is the biggest problem with the story in the game. Another thing that people pointed out was that relationship between Yen and Ciri felt a bit underdeveloped. Yennefer is like a mother for Ciri, and Ciri the child Yennefer always wanted. They love each other to the point each of them would sacrifice her life to save the other. In the games, we don't really get Yennefer-Ciri moments. Geralt had plenty of emotional moments with Ciri and a lot of good conversations and father-daughter moments. I could see how game could have a cutscene or a quest even to show the love between Yennefer and Ciri, but it lacked it. However, it's not a major issue but a nice to have. Another thing that a lot of people complained about was removing Jorvis from the story and consequently reducing the role of Scoia'tael. Jorvis is loved by many fans and having him would have definitely added more depth to the story. But again, it's something that many people have talked about, so I'm not going to get into details. And finally, let's finish the video with this hot take. A user on Reddit said, Cdpr needs to find a way to write a plot that doesn't revolve around time sensitivity and end-of-life/world scenarios. When they do it, it's brilliant. Witcher 1 and 2 are brilliantly storyboarded and plotted games. Witcher 3, you tell me my child of destiny is hurt, scared, and hunted by Eternal Spectre army. If I don't save her, the entire heat death of universe is going to happen. But I also should go play Gwent and get 150 crowns for killing a Leshen, while my Witcher gear costs 15,000 crowns. I understand what he's saying, but if we rushed the whole game, it wouldn't have been The Witcher 3. While it logically doesn't make sense for Geralt to get into a Gwent tournament when Ciri is in mortal danger and time is of essence, the game wouldn't have been fun without all the brilliant side quests. However, like he said, maybe Cdpr should have toned the time sensitivity a bit down. While The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is not free of issues, a few major and some minors, it's the best game I have ever played to this day. I enjoyed living in its world and had great memories with its brilliant characters. I hope Witcher 4 keeps the story as good and improves on the combat system. And for that, we should wait and see. Thank you for watching this video, and until the next time, take care.